There's a sound every car owner dreads. It's not the crash. It's not the screech of metal on asphalt. It's the knock. That deep, rhythmic knock coming from somewhere inside the engine. A sound that means something has already gone wrong. Something that could have been stopped weeks or months ago. Something that is now going to cost more money than most Americans have sitting in their savings account. This is a documentary about that sound, about the decisions that led up to it, and about the people who had to live with what came after. Every year, American drivers spend over $400 billion on vehicle maintenance and repair. A significant portion of that money is spent not fixing cars. It's spent fixing the consequences of the wrong fix, the wrong part, the wrong diagnosis, the wrong decision made under pressure on a Tuesday afternoon when someone just needed their car back for work the next morning. These aren't stories about bad luck. They're stories about how one small mistake at the exact wrong moment inside the exact wrong engine can turn a $200 repair into a $12,000 catastrophe. Marcus Webb was a 41-year-old electrician from outside Columbus, Ohio, when his 2017 Chevy Silverado started running rough. Not dramatically, not dangerously, just rough. A slight hesitation at idle, a marginal drop in fuel economy. He took it to a local shop that had worked on his family's vehicles for years. The mechanic ran a diagnostic, came back with a quote for spark plugs and a coil pack replacement. Standard stuff. About $340. Marcus approved the work, picked up the truck, and drove home thinking the problem was solved. 6 weeks later, the truck started misfiring again. This time, harder. He took it back. Different mechanic looked at it, found an additional coil pack had failed. Replaced it. Another $180. Problem continued. He went back a third time. By now he was frustrated, and the shop was defensive. On the fourth visit, a more experienced technician finally pulled the fuel injector data and found the real issue. A clogged injector had been causing unburned fuel to wash the cylinder walls, damaging the piston rings. By the time anyone found it, the damage was done. Engine replacement. $8,400. A problem that started as a $200 injector cleaning had turned into something that swallowed Marcus's entire savings and then some. This is called a misdiagnosis chain, and it's one of the most financially devastating things that can happen to a vehicle owner. The first diagnosis is wrong. The repair is done anyway. The problem continues. Each subsequent visit costs money without solving anything. And the entire time, the underlying damage is compounding, getting worse with every mile, every cold start, every highway run. By the time someone identifies what's actually happening, the repair bill reflects not just the original problem, but everything that happened while it was being ignored or treated incorrectly. There's another category of repair mistake that doesn't involve misdiagnosis at all. Sometimes the diagnosis is exactly right, and the repair goes wrong anyway. In 2022, a woman named Sandra Okafor brought her 2019 Honda CR-V into a dealership service center in suburban Atlanta for a timing chain tensioner replacement, a legitimate repair for a known issue on that engine. The work was authorized. The parts were genuine Honda components. The technician assigned to the job was experienced. But somewhere during the reassembly, under the pressure of a full service bay and a shop foreman pushing for faster ticket times, a small retaining bolt was not torqued to spec. It was close, barely under. Not something that would show up on a visual inspection. Sandra drove the car home that afternoon. She drove it to work for the next 9 days. On the 10th day, at highway speed on I-285, the tensioner shifted. The timing chain jumped 2 teeth in a fraction of a second. The valves contacted the pistons. In automotive terms, it's called interference, when moving engine components occupy the same physical space simultaneously. The engine destroyed itself from the inside in less time than it takes to blink. Sandra pulled to the shoulder as the engine locked up, smoke rising from under the hood. She wasn't hurt. The car was totaled as a mechanical unit. The engine replacement, labor included, was $11,000. The dealership's insurance eventually covered most of it after 4 months of documentation and dispute. But Sandra spent those 4 months without reliable transportation, borrowing her sister's car, missing 2 client appointments, and losing a freelance contract that had been worth $8,000 in scheduled work. 1 bolt, 1 torque spec, 9 days of nothing, and then everything at once. The timing chain mistake is particularly cruel because it's invisible. You cannot see a bolt that's 4 foot-pounds under spec. You cannot hear it during a test drive. The car feels perfectly normal, right up until it doesn't. This is what makes certain repair errors so financially catastrophic. They hide. They wait. And when they surface, they do it completely, with no warning and no grace period. DIY repair culture has exploded in America over the last decade. YouTube tutorials, forums, and affordable tool rental programs have made it genuinely possible for a motivated amateur to perform repairs that once required a professional shop. And for a large percentage of procedures, this works well. Oil changes, brake pad replacements, battery swaps, even suspension components. These are all within reach of someone who takes their time and follows instructions carefully. But there is a category of repair that consistently destroys engines in the hands of people who underestimate it. And that category is anything involving engine timing. A retired school teacher from rural Texas named David Huang decided in late 2023 to replace the timing belt on his 2004 Toyota 4Runner himself. He had successfully completed several repairs at home, including brakes and an alternator. He watched 6 hours of tutorial videos. He purchased quality tools. He bought a belt kit from a reputable parts supplier. The job took him an entire weekend. When he started the engine Monday morning, it ran for about 40 seconds. Then it made the knock, that specific, terrible knock, and died. David had misaligned the camshaft by 1 tooth during reassembly. On an interference engine, that's enough. The valves hit the pistons on the first firing cycle. The repair he was attempting to save $1,200 on cost him $6,000 at a machine shop, plus a rebuilt cylinder head at another $2,200. He spent the money. He learned the lesson. But it was a lesson that cost him more than a year's worth of car payments. The wrong oil is a mistake that sounds almost too simple to be catastrophic. But the specifications printed on an engine's oil cap exist because engineers tested thousands of operating hours to find exactly the viscosity and additive package that keeps that specific engine alive under stress. A 2021 Kia Telluride with a direct injection V6 calls for 5W30 full synthetic. It's specific because the hydraulic lifters and variable valve timing system in that engine are sensitive to oil pressure at cold start. A shop in Michigan, working quickly during a Saturday rush, installed 10 W40 conventional oil from a bulk drum. The wrong weight, the wrong formulation. The owner drove it through winter. Every cold start, the thicker oil took fractionally longer to reach the top end of the engine. 6 months later, premature lifter wear, collapsed lifter, engine tick that never went away, and a repair estimate of $4,200. The shop settled out of court, but the settlement process took 8 months and a lawyer. Nobody got that time back. Cheap aftermarket parts represent their own quiet disaster in the American repair landscape. Not all aftermarket components are inferior. Many are manufactured to standards that match or exceed OEM quality. But the market also contains parts that are built to a price point rather than a performance standard. Sensors that fail within months. Fuel pumps that cavitate under load. timing components made from materials that expand differently under heat than the originals they're replacing. A driver in Phoenix learned this in 2023 when an aftermarket water pump installed during a belt service failed at 14,000 miles, less than a year of driving. The failure caused overheating that the owner didn't notice quickly enough. The head gasket blew. The aluminum head warped slightly. Full repair? $6,000. The water pump that caused it had cost $38. The quality OEM replacement would have cost $112. The difference between those two numbers, $74, separated a minor expense from a major financial event. This is ultimately what all of these stories have in common. None of them started as disasters. They started as small decisions made under time pressure, budget pressure, or simply a lack of complete information, a diagnostic shortcut, a part chosen for price rather than quality, a bolt left slightly loose during a long day in a busy shop, a home repair that went 97% right and 3% wrong in exactly the wrong place. Every single one of these repair mistakes was, at some earlier point, preventable. The margin between a successful repair and a catastrophic one is sometimes a single bolt, a single quart of correct oil, a single extra hour of careful inspection. Your car is trying to tell you something long before it fails completely. The idle that seems slightly off, the vibration that wasn't there 6 months ago, the warning light that's been on for 2 weeks while you wait to have time to deal with it. These signals are not suggestions. They are the engine's only vocabulary, and it uses them because it has no other way to tell you that something is starting to go wrong inside a system too complex to see and too expensive to ignore. Listen early. Fix correctly the first time. Choose quality over savings on the components that matter, because the cost of the right repair, done right, at the right time, is almost always a fraction of what you'll spend recovering from the wrong one. The knock doesn't announce itself. It just arrives. And by the time you hear it, the decision that caused it is already weeks in the past.